Hey everybody, it is chapter book story time. So we are reading The Magic Misfits, the second story, and we are at a very interesting part. So Sandra Santos, aka Madame Esmeralda, just did her performance on stage as a psychic, and at the end of her performance she was doing a reading for the final two couple on stage, and she seemed distressed and didn't want to do it, but she basically announced that this couple are related to Layla. And we know that Layla was adopted by the Vernons, and she had been left at an orphanage as a baby, where she was raised by the teachers there, and then she was adopted by the Vernons. Well, suddenly this couple are here, this man and woman, and Sandra's saying, and they're saying that, hey, we're your biological parents. Like, this woman is the one that carried you in her tummy. And that's a bit overwhelming for Layla. And for, Mr. Dante Vernon and the other Mr. Vernon, too. This is very sudden, and it can be kind of scary to have something new thrown into your life like that. But I'm also wondering, because Sandra was so distressed and didn't seem like she wanted to make that announcement, and is there someone putting Sandra up to this? Oh, careful, Noodles. Excuse me. Is there someone putting Sandra up to this? Is there a trick afoot, or is this genuine and real? I don't know. But in the last chapter we read, Layla went home with the Vernons, with her family, but they got a call saying that the Verolicas, which is the last name of this couple, want to meet with them tomorrow. So let's see how it goes. But just keep in mind that, while this is all kind of scary and confusing for Layla, she has so many people there to support her and love her, and they've all got her back, right? Mr. Dante Vernon, the other Mr. Vernon, and her whole Misfits crew. They're all showing so much support and love for her through this kind of weird, confusing, scary time. But let's see how it goes. Here we go. Chapter 23. The morning was bright and the sky was clear. By the time Layla, Carter, and the other two Mr. Vernons made it to the lawyer's address, the sun was well on its way to wilting the lush valley and warming the rivers that snaked through the surrounding hills. The brick building was 2 stories tall. Empty lots bordered the property on each side, and beyond those were thick patches of brush and brambles. A train horn blew in the distance, and a warm wind rocked to the trees all around. The lawyer's name on the door appeared to be freshly painted, causing Mr. Vernon to raise an eyebrow. The other Mr. Vernon pulled open the door. At the far end of a long space, there was The other Mr. Vernon pulled open the door. At the far end of a long space, there was a big desk and several chairs arranged in a half circle. The 2 on the left were occupied by Mr. and Mrs. Varalica. The couple stood, practically trembling, as the Vernons approached with the kids. Behind the desk sat a tall man in a stiff gray suit. His blonde hair was brushed straight back, and his long nose reminded Layla of the beak of an eagle or some other bird of prey. "You must be the Vernons." The tall man rose to his feet and held out his hand, but only Mr. Vernon took it, and he did so reluctantly. "I am Sammy Falsk, Esquire," the lawyer said. He turned his withering gaze toward Layla, and when he smiled, she shuddered. His teeth were as yellow as canary birds in a coal mine. "This young lady must be Layla. The Varalicas have filled me in on your plight. Please sit." There was a sound back by the front door. Layla turned and saw a second desk, where another man was working, an unusually short man with a thick black mustache and a black bowler hat, typing away at an ancient typewriter. He looked like he might be a partner or colleague of Mr. Falsk's. He paid her no attention. The other Mr. Vernon eased himself into one of the stiff chairs, glancing suspiciously at the mostly empty space. "Looks like you're still moving in," he muttered. Yes, yes, new to town, lovely place, Sammy Falsk, Esquire, answered. As Layla sat, she searched for herself in the faces of the Varalikas, trying to pick out features she might have seen in her own mirror. The woman's nostrils looked sort of familiar, and the man's earlobes were high and tight like her own. But that was about it. A birth mother's nostrils and a birth father's earlobes? Not all children resemble their parents exactly, but Layla's genetic connection with the Varalikas did not appear to be strong. This was no relief. Interesting. So they've gone to meet these people. These are lawyers who have seemingly just come to town from where we don't know. And Layla's noticing that she doesn't really have a lot of resembling features to the Varalikas. That, obviously children don't look exactly like their parents, but there are certain things that they have in common that they share through genetics. And Layla's saying, I'm not seeing the genetic connection here. Is she starting to get suspicious about these Varalikas? Do you think that they're really related to Layla? I don't know. That would be a terrible thing to trick about, but I guess let's keep going and find out. She'd managed to make it through her entire performance without freezing with stage fright, but she feared that if anyone were to ask her a question now, her lips would seize up, and she'd look like she didn't know how to speak. It felt like a trap from which she could not escape. Carter caught her eye, and he winked. That helped a little bit. Thank goodness for him, she thought. Sammy Falsk, Esquire, sat at the big desk and motioned for everyone else to sit too. He launched immediately into a grand spiel. I have been an expert in family law for as long as I can remember, which, let me tell you, is a very long time. My first case involved a couple who was trying to regain custody of their child after both of them had gone missing during an expedition to... His voice droned on and on. All that Layla could think about was what she would do if she were forced to go live with these people who she didn't even know. How different would a professor and banker's home be from living over an actual magic shop? After which, continued the lawyer, I took a lovely vacation to Madrid with my third wife, whose full name was Francesca Dominique de Luisa Maria Benedictine Marzipan, who grew up in the south of... Layla tried to follow his story, but it was so nonsensical that her mind kept drifting and her eyes scanned the sad little office. She noticed the lawyer near the front door was humming a tune under his breath. Layla thought it was a really odd thing to do during a serious legal discussion. The dust in the room was thick. The morning light filtering through the newspapered windows was a drowsy amber. Her fathers listened politely, but wore stern expressions, their brows low, their mouths pinched, their hands folded in their laps. The Varalika's smiles did not leave their faces. And the lawyer played on. Which brings me back to my original point. You just cannot trust a domesticated house cat. Mr. Vernon interrupted. I'm sorry to stop you here, but would you mind getting to the business at hand? Sammy Falsk, Esquire, leaned forward. Business? Yes, let's get to it. He flipped through some papers in a manila file folder on the desk. I have here a birth certificate with all the names and dates accounted for. Pammy, Bob, Layla, the Varalikas, all official. The man near the front door continued to hum. Layla recognized the old folk band, Oh My Darling Clementine. The sound of it was like fingernails running up Layla's spine. Mr. Vernon held out his hand. I'd like to take a closer look, if you please. But when Sammy Falsk, Esquire, placed the document onto Vernon's palm, a dark spot appeared in the center and spread quickly outward until the page was almost completely black. Layla recalled her father once performing a trick like this at the magic shop using a palmed ink pad. Mrs. Varalika shrieked. Oh my, said Mr. Vernon with a shrug. So sorry, my mistake. I do hope you have another copy. As it so happens, said the lawyer, his face red as he pulled another sheet of paper from the folder. I do. I must insist we be more careful. With this one, however, you may look but may not touch. Layla couldn't bring herself to get any closer to it. As if sensing her discomfort, Carter took her hand and she sighed. The other Mr. Vernon stood up and bent over the desk, peering at the birth certificate. His cheeks went slack. It looks real enough. Mr. Vernon poked him in the back. A magician knows that real enough doesn't mean authentic, my dear. The hum continued. Oh, my darling, oh, my darling. Layla noticed that Carter seemed to be irked by the humming as well. What exactly is your purpose in bringing us here today? Mr. Vernon asked the Varlikas. Isn't it obvious? Pammy responded. We need to work out a way to bring our baby home with us. Layla felt the blood drain out of her face. The room tilted, and she grasped one side of the chair to stop from toppling over. The other Mr. Vernon held her forearm tightly, while Carter continued to grip her hand. Such an interesting request, said Mr. Vernon with a grin. Why does he look happy? Layla thought. No, not happy. There was something in his eyes that was, what, devious? Assured? Layla wondered if there was a way to tap into whatever he was feeling. It would certainly feel better than the helplessness that was binding her like ropes around her torso. We understand that this process will not be easy, the lawyer continued. But what I hope to begin this very day is some sort of negotiation to allow Layla to spend some time with the Varlikas, to get to know them, slowly, over time. We certainly wouldn't ask to make any abrupt changes. Of course not. Abrupt changes are the worst sort of changes to make. Mr. Vernon nodded emphatically. Like showing up in town after a lifetime and asking a girl to change her entire world. Dante, please, the other Mr. Vernon said quietly. Then he turned to Layla. This decision isn't up to me or your father. This is up to you, and we'll support you no matter what you decide. Please tell us, is this something that you'd like to do, Layla? I don't... Layla was still waiting for an answer to come to her, telling her what to feel. Right now it was all anxiety and anger and confusion and thunder and lightning and gale force winds and flying cows and maybe a little bit of Dorothy singing sweetly about places beyond rainbows, which was exactly where Layla wanted to be at the moment. Her skin flushed with heat and pain, she clutched at the key beneath her shirt and it brought her back to earth. Carter started squeezing her hand in an odd way. She glanced at him, but he purposefully kept his eyes focused on the humming lawyer. Within seconds, Layla recognized what Carter was doing, making a pattern, sending her a Morse code message. SOS, 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 the universal sign for distress. She squeezed him back, saying, dot, dash, dash, dot, 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 dash, dash, dash. The lawyers didn't seem to notice them communicating in this way. Falsk blathered on about next steps and about the law being on his side. In the meantime, Carter squeezed more Morse code. Layla slowly deciphered it. I wonder if it wants us to decipher it, because it doesn't tell me what he's saying. Well, let's keep going and see. Because there's just a bunch of dots and dashes. It doesn't translate it for me. But let's keep going and see what happens. So just to catch us up real quick. So they're in this meeting. The Varlikas are basically saying, well, we want our daughter. And Layla's like, whoa. Her whole family is like, this is a lot. Because obviously Layla loves her family, the Vernons and the Misfits, and she doesn't want to be taken away. And she sees Mr. Dante Vernon seems to have some look of determination on his face. And she doesn't know if he has a plan, but he's got this look of like he has a plan. So hopefully he has a plan. But in the meantime, there's this lawyer in the background that's humming this song, and now Carter and Layla are communicating through Morse code. So let's see what happens. Layla couldn't help leaping to her feet in shock. Everyone turned to look at her. "Layla?" asked Mr. Vernon. "What is it?" But Layla couldn't answer. There was too much happening in her head. No, she thought, it can't be. What on earth would a member of Bozo's old crew be doing here in... Then it came to her. Everything about these people, Mr. and Mrs. Varalika, what if they weren't really her parents? All right, so apparently Carter noticed something in that when he said something to her in Morse code, because all of a sudden she's thinking someone in this room is a member of Bozo's old crew. We don't know who because we weren't able to translate Carter's Morse code, but they saw something that made her think of Bozo's old crew, and now she's questioning that these Varalikas are actually her biological parents at all. Is this all a trick? I don't know. This is crazy. Let's keep going. "What do you know about keys?" she managed to squeak out. Mrs. Varalika appeared to be confused. Keys? Actually, both Mr. Vernons looked confused too. Only Carter gave her a knowing glance. Why is she asking about keys? Do you remember? What's she wearing around her neck right now? She's wearing the key that was left with her as a baby, the only thing she has left from her biological parents. So, if the Varalikas are really her biological parents, they would know about this key. The small man near the door stopped humming. He peered over, a sharp glint in his expression. Yes, keys, or rather, one key in per... Oh wait, is that Layla talking? I think so. Yes, keys, or rather, one key in particular. Something registered in the Varalika's eyes. We don't know much, Mrs. Varalika answered stiffly. They unlock things, doors and such. That was all she needed. Layla was certain. The mention of her key should have meant the world to them. These people were not the ones who had left her on the steps of Mother Margaret's home for children. There was no way she'd let them take her anywhere. Then she had a creepier thought. If they're not my birth parents, then what are they doing here? Why would they lie? Carter's message blinked back into her brain. Frown clown. What if it wasn't just one member of Bozo's crew who was in town? What if it was all of them? Never mind, she said, her throat constricting. I was confused. Sorry. As soon as she took her seat, she began tapping on the arm of her chair. Vernon took notice. ... Mr. Vernon nodded that he understood his daughter. Well, this all sounds splendid. What a wonderful meeting. You have our phone number, so please call us later. I'm sure we'll be able to work it all out. But for now, our family must be going. Not yet, please, said the fake lawyer. We still have so much time to go over. Another time, Mr. Vernon said. He nodded to the other Mr. Vernon. Without hesitation, each Mr. Vernon took one of the kids by the hand and marched them toward the exit across the long room. But the Varalikas rushed past them to block the door. The man who'd been humming got up and joined them. The three were now standing in the way, none of them smiling. Okay, so Carter and Layla start to realize that some of these people are part of Bozo's old crew. So all of a sudden we're thinking, wait, BB Bozo is supposed to be in jail, but is his crew still here? is Bazo still running some scheme from jail? And so Mr. Vernon picks up on their Morse code that they're doing and catches on to what's going on with Layla and Carter. And so he says, okay, time to go. We'll finish this conversation later. So they stand up, they take Carter and Layla by the hand. They're walking them to the exit of this office when the Varalikas run up, block the door, and that the shorter lawyer who was humming in the back also stood up and blocked the door. So now they're like physically blocking them from leaving. Sammy Falsk Esquire also joined his partners in front of the exit. All three men stuck their hands into their jacket pockets and pulled out long black billy clubs that looked thick enough to knock a person unconscious. Mr. Varalika, wearing a frown, said, "You and your brats aren't going anywhere." Bum bum! And that is the end of our chapter. Okay, so now we know, I think we can say with confidence at this point that the Varalikas are not related to Layla. This is all a trick. Is it being run by Bibi Bazo, though? Because he's supposed to be in jail. So either he's somehow running this scheme from jail or someone else has taken over. But what is their goal? What are they trying to achieve? We don't know what they want, what they're doing, what they're trying to do. Oh my goodness. The mysteries in this one just keep getting crazier and crazier. But we're going to have to wait to find out. I don't know, you guys. This is crazy. What do you think is going to happen? Do you have any predictions? There's so many wild things that have been happening. I don't know. I'm having a hard time making a prediction. I don't know what it is what they want. What are they trying to get? Because in the first book, they were trying to get that giant diamond. So what are they trying to get from the Vernons? Maybe at the beginning, the monkey, do you remember the monkey, Mr. Bazo's old monkey that was running around town, tried to steal Mr. Vernon's his magic notebook? So maybe they're trying to get his, magic tricks, the secrets to his magic tricks. I don't know. What do you think? That's my prediction. You make a prediction. There's a lot to go off of here, so make a prediction. Let me know what you think, because this is wild. All right, well, we'll start reading chapter 24 next time and see if we can unravel this mystery a little bit. See you then.